Hello listeners and viewers. Welcome to Kaduna State Ministry of Education Radio and TV e-learning program designed for our SS3 and other students staying at home due to the coronavirus pandemic. The present administration, under the able leadership of His Excellency, Malam Nasir Ahmed El-Rufai, is positioned, as always, to ensure that under his leadership, our students are not left behind in all areas of human endeavors, especially education. Kaduna State is the center of learning. Therefore, we want to ensure that our students excel in their forthcoming examinations and beyond. Students and other learners at home are given this opportunity in order to continue learning, as education is a continuous process. Different subjects will be taught in this program to assist students to perform excellently in the forthcoming Senior School Certificate examination being conducted by NECO and WAEC as soon as schools reopen. Teachers making presentations will always provide their names and phone numbers during each presentation, and they can be contacted for questions, further explanations, and/or clarifications. The following numbers and contacts can also be reached for expression of any concern or observation: 090-865-00545 or 080-383-62072. Our website is www.education.kdsg.gov.ng. Our email education@kdsg.gov.ng or education.kdsg@gmail.com. Our YouTube channel, Ministry of Education, Kaduna State. Our Twitter handle @Kaduna_MOE. Or our Facebook page, Ministry of Education, Kaduna State. Stay safe, stay at home, and learn well. Thank you, happy listening, and happy viewing.
Hello, learners. Welcome to another segment of e-learning. I am Mrs. Chinyo, and I will be taking government. Today, we shall be looking at the legislative arm of government. If you follow the previous lesson, we said that for the purpose of convenience and proper administration, government business has been divided or is divided into three departments or arms. That is the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. In the last lesson, we looked at the executive arm, and in this lesson, we shall be taking the legislative arm of governance. In every human society, there are a set of rules and regulations guiding our behaviors and activities. Now, the behaviors and activities are guided by sets of rules made by recognized bodies or institutions. For example, in our families, we have rules and regulations, most of which are made by the head of the family, which is the father. He set rules on when the children can go out and come back to the house. He set rules about activities. Probably he will tell you he doesn't want you to fight in the family. He doesn't want you to make unnecessary friends. All this is to monitor and guide the behavior of family members. If you go to our school systems, in our schools, the principal, his vice principals, and other principal officers also laid down some rules in our schools to help guide the conduct of both the students, the teachers, and other workers in the school system so that the school system will be properly conducted. In the same vein, in our country, using Nigeria as an example, we have an institution or a body that is responsible for the formulation of rules, making laws that will help in the proper conduct of the country's administration and its people in general. The legislature, by way of definition, is the organ of government responsible for making law in a country. That is, it is the recognized institution in Nigeria to formulate or to make law that will help in the administration and in the behavior of citizens in the country. Now, the lawmaking body or organ of government can be unicameral or bicameral. What do we mean by unicameral? Unicameral is an arrangement or a situation whereby the law-making body is only one, or the chamber responsible for the formulation of law in that country is only one. While bicameral means that the lawmaking chamber or body of a country or in a country is two. So wherever you hear the word unicameral, it refers to one lawmaking chamber, while bicameral refers to two lawmaking chambers. Depending on the country, the legislature is known variously. That is, different countries have different names for their legislative chamber. For instance, in Great Britain, the legislative chamber is known as the Parliament, while in Nigeria, the legislative chamber at the national or federal level is known as the National Assembly. In the USA, their legislative chamber is known as the Congress, while in France, it is referred to as Chamber of Deputies. We have a lot, but these few examples are enough. I want you to note that in Nigeria and the USA, the legislature is divided into House of Senate and House of Representatives. While in Britain, it is called House of Lords and House of Commons. We want to look at the various types of legislature we had mentioned earlier. Number one, unicameral legislature. This means a single legislating chamber, that is the house responsible for legislation is only one. This kind of chamber or house is constituted through direct election. An example of countries or some countries that have a single or unicameral legislature include Greece, Yugoslavia, Bulgaria, Israel, and Ghana. Ghana, our fellow West African country, also have a unicameral legislature. Bicameral legislature, on the other hand, is an arrangement whereby the legislating chambers or houses are two. That is, there is an upper and lower chambers. In Nigeria, for example, the Senate chamber is the upper legislating chamber, while the House of Representatives is the lower legislating chamber. I want to observe, and I want you to note, that there is an unexpressed, that is, it is not voiced out, assumption that the upper chamber is reserved for more experienced and privileged few politicians than the lower chamber. Nobody is saying it. That is why I use the word unexpressed. But if you look at the methodology and the crop of people that constitute the upper legislative chamber, you see that they are people of experience that have been in politics for a very long time. In Britain, for instance, the upper chamber, which is the House of Lords, is actually a hereditary chamber. That is, membership or lawmakers that constitute the upper chamber, that is House of Lords in Britain, inherit their position in the family. It runs in the family. After Mr. A from family B exits the House of Lords, another lawmaker from that family inherits his seat or position in the House of Lords. Outsiders cannot just come in and say they want to be members of this upper legislative chamber. In Canada and Italy, on the other hand, for you to be a member of the legislating chamber, you must be nominated. You must be a man of proven integrity, experience, then you are nominated to be part of that legislative chamber. In Nigeria, the USA, and Australia, both chambers, that is the upper and lower legislative chambers, are constituted through direct election. Let me give you a classic example. Any candidate vying or contesting for the position of a senator in Nigeria, it doesn't matter whether his father was once a senator or not. All he does is to come out, show his interest, try to sell his idea to the citizens, and if they so wish, they vote him and he becomes a senator. In the same light, people are voted or candidate must vie for votes before they are elected into the House of Representatives. It's not by nomination, neither is it by inheritance. This practice is obtained in Nigeria, the USA, and Australia, among a few examples. Heard so much about the types of legislature that we have and how they are constituted. What then are the functions performed by this legislating chamber? That is the functions of the legislature. The functions of the legislature are many. We'll discuss but a few. 1, law making through legislative process. There are processes to be followed for laws to be enacted or made in any country of the world. And the primary function of the legislature is to legislate or to make laws. Number 2, financial control over the spending of the executive. We'll use Nigeria as an example. Now, when the executive arm of government prepare what we call appropriation bill, that is their intention, the budget, their financial intention for the year. Before they start executing that budget, they must present such to the legislative arm for consideration. And they must appear before the legislature to answer questions as the legislature would have concerning the budget presented. That is to say, the legislature exercises financial control over how the executive spends money. Number 3, it investigates how government departments appropriate approved funds. After the budget is defended and approved, the legislature has the power, or are given the power, to investigate, that is, find out how the various departments spend the monies approved to them. They can call the Ministry of Education to come and explain how the budget approved for them was spent. What did they use the money for? They can call the Ministry of Finance. They can call the Ministry of Defense to come and explain how they spend the monies approved to them in the budget. Controls the activities of other branches of government through the various House committees. In the legislative chamber, Members, that is the legislators, have been grouped, divided into various House committees. For instance, House Committee on Power, Aviation, Education, to mention a few. Now, these various House committees can invite any department or any ministry to appear before the said House committee and explain what is happening. For example, let me just use this as an example. We have been having power challenges in Nigeria. Now, the House committee responsible for power can invite the said ministry or department to explain why the challenges on power. Why are we still having problems in the power sector regardless or in spite of the budgetary allocation? And they will be given an answer. Based on their answer, the House committee will take a decision and take it back to the floor of the House. We are not talking about those processes, but we are looking at functions performed by the legislative arm of government. The next point, when duty demands, that is when it becomes necessary, the legislature can impeach. Impeach simply means remove. The legislature can impeach a sitting chief executive. There are processes for impeachment. We are not discussing that. The point here is, if a chief executive, either at the state or at the federal level, is underperforming and has given the legislature a reason, they can initiate a process and impeach him from power. All that is geared towards good governance. We had a case at hand in 1981 in Kaduna State during the Second Republic, whereby a sitting chief executive of the state was impeached. That is an example in Nigeria. There are other examples in other countries of the world. The legislature also approves or disapproves proposal to declare war or a state of emergency in the country. They have that power. If the chief executive of the federation decides that he will declare war against a neighboring country, he has no mandate to initiate that proposal immediately. Rather, he will make his intention and reasons known to the legislature. If they give the approval, then he is free to declare that war because he is commander-in-chief of the federation. There could be crisis in any sector of the country or the state. For good governance, the chief executive, either at the national or at the state level, can declare a state of emergency. There are instances whereby when the governor of Kaduna State came on board, he declared a state of emergency on the educational sector in order to improve education. Another function, the legislature ratify treaties. They sign and give approval, that's a simple meaning. And other forms of internal agreements entered into by the executive arm of government. Before the executive will enter into a treaty and that treaty accepted as official, the legislature must give its consent and say, yes, go ahead with that treaty or agreement. Otherwise, the executive cannot do that. Another function is that the legislature checks to ensure that delegated legislation is not abused. We introduced the concept of delegated legislation in a previous lesson. Now, because the executive have the power to make emergency laws, the legislature follow them, keep them on their toe to ensure that they don't abuse that privilege. Learners, today we were able to look at the functions performed by the legislature, types of legislature, and the meaning of the legislature. I want to leave you with assignments that will keep you busy till we meet in the next class. The first assignment is define the concept of bicameral legislature. That is, what is bicameral legislature? The second question, enumerate 6 functions performed by the legislature in a modern state. I repeat the questions for the assignments again. Question 1. What is bicameral legislature? Number 2. Enumerate 6 functions performed by the legislature in a modern state. After the assignment, submitted to this number 081047425553. I take the number again. 081047425553. I remain Mrs. Chinyo. Stay home, stay safe. See you in the next lesson.